So what I believe to be the first steps in planning a search is looking at the emotional safety of all the people that are going to be involved in the search process. And that includes the staff, whoever the committee is, the committee members, and the staff that are going to be working with the committee, and the survivors, but the survivors of all the students that attended the school, that is where the search is going to happen. And then if there aren't any survivors left from a certain family member, is to include the family members of those survivors as well, and to include them. And I know that we had a search in Red Deer that happened, and because it was generations ago, is that the committee contacted family members of the former students, and I think that's really important to do that, to be included as a part of the process. And then how are you going to ensure that people are going to be emotionally safe? And so that would include the resolution health support workers, and if you don't know how to contact the resolution health support workers, is contacting the regional Indigenous services, and they will give you the information to where you can find and locate the resolution health support workers.
Forensic experts are guided by the scientific, medical, and ethical standards of their profession, but also the legal requirements of the death investigation in each province and territory. It is important, however, that they are also guided by the families and communities involved to respect their laws and protocols, but also uphold their wishes.
One of the first considerations when planning a search is recognizing how complex it is to actually conduct a search. There are many different types of experts that are going to need to be engaged. This can range from archival researchers to ground search technicians to forensic experts. It is not a simple process to find these children. It is a necessary process, and it is important that whoever you're working with, whether you have existing expertise within the community or whether you're bringing in outside experts, that they are following best practices to support you in this very difficult, very painful, and often very long journey. There are certain answers that can be provided in certain types of information, but it's important that there's an understanding of what can be learned and what people need to be brought together in order to do that. Sometimes you will be working with outside experts, consultants, or others that you might be paying to do this work for you. It's important to ensure that they know how to do this work in a good way, in a culturally informed and trauma-informed way, and that they're respecting and upholding Indigenous data sovereignty. All these things should be considered prior to beginning any search process. It's also really important to know that the work will only be finished when survivors, elders, and the community have decided that it's finished, and that could take years, potentially even decades. And not completing the work has the potential to do real harm. This is a long journey ahead, and it's important to have people to walk that journey with you.
I think because there are so many various steps and working parts to this kind of hard work, that sometimes the very first step can get lost in conversations, and that very first step should actually be integrated throughout, and that is the work with survivors, knowledge keepers, and elders. They need to be central throughout this whole process. And so even when you get to step 3, 4, 5, 6, 20, that could include archives, that could include working with a cartographer on mapping, that could include working with a forensic specialist. We need to ensure that the first steps, so working with community and survivors, and really prioritizing and centralizing Indigenous knowledge and community-based practices, continue to be seen throughout the whole process.
The first steps in planning a search for unmarked burial sites is to ensure that the historical context is well understood. But even before that, it's important to ensure that this research is guided by Indigenous knowledge keepers, elders, and authorities, that ceremony is followed, social protocol is acknowledged, so that the research is done and approached with a clear mind, a pure heart, and a strong spirit. And ceremony should be done throughout the research process. But to gather this historical context will take time, and the sources are dispersed. They can be photographs, they could be documents, they could be maps, they could be building plans, and of course they could be the memories of survivors. And once all of this material has been gathered, it's also important to recognize it must be stored in a way that is well ordered, well sorted, and easily accessible, so that reference can be made to the research that's been done, and future generations can also go back to this research and ensure that it's accountable and authentic and genuine. And it's also possible during the research that human remains might be found. And in those cases, it's also important to make sure that all of this material is properly stored, properly referenced, and under the guidance and control of the community that is doing the research.